Good evening, everyone. Today, I want to talk about boundaries, real meaningful boundaries, the kind that don't always make you feel like the hero, but instead leave you standing in the truth of who you are. There's a moment in all our lives when someone crosses a line intentionally or not. They hurt us, disrespect us, or take more than they ever intended to give back. And when that happens, there's a choice to make. Do we react, trying to defend, explain, or fix the situation? Or do we step away with the clarity of silence, knowing that not every action deserves a reaction? Silence is a powerful boundary, not a sign of weakness. For many of us, the idea of silence feels counterintuitive, especially in a world that rewards quick responses and loud reactions. We've been conditioned to believe that speaking up, defending ourselves, or explaining our side is the ultimate demonstration of strength and courage. And yes, there is undeniable power in using our voices, but sometimes the most impactful thing we can do is remain silent. Silence isn't passive. It's not an avoidance of conflict or an inability to stand up for oneself. It's a deliberate choice, an intentional act of self-respect and self-preservation. It's recognizing that our energy and our words are valuable resources that shouldn't be wasted on situations or individuals that don't honor them. Silence is a boundary that speaks volumes without uttering a single word. It's a statement that says, I choose not to engage with what doesn't serve me. When you're silent, it can feel like you're relinquishing control, like you're letting someone else win the argument. But the truth is that silence shifts the dynamic entirely. It removes you from the cycle of reaction and counter-reaction, allowing you to reclaim your emotional power. You are no longer operating on someone else's terms, responding to their provocations or demands. Instead, you're setting the terms by choosing not to participate in a way that drains you or compromises your well-being. There's strength in silence because it requires restraint. It's easy to lash out when we feel hurt or wronged. It's easy to react in the heat of the moment, letting our emotions take control. But silence asks us to pause, to step back, and to consider the bigger picture. It asks us to assess whether engaging in this conflict, this argument, or this interaction is truly worth our time and energy. And more often than not, it's not. Silence also allows us to protect our peace. When we engage in unnecessary battles, we invite chaos and negativity into our lives. We let someone else dictate our emotional state, pulling us into their drama or dysfunction. But when we choose silence, we shield ourselves from that energy. We create a buffer, a space where we can breathe, reflect, and focus on what truly matters to us. Silence is a way of saying, I value my peace too much to give it away to the situation. One of the most misunderstood aspects of silence is its role in relationships. Choosing silence doesn't mean you're shutting down or refusing to communicate. It doesn't mean you're unwilling to have difficult conversations or work through challenges with people who matter to you. But it does mean that you're discerning about when and how to engage. Not every action or comment requires a response. Not every person deserves access to your thoughts and feelings. In some cases, silence is the most loving thing you can do for yourself and for the other person. It's a way of stepping back and acknowledging that continuing to engage would only cause more harm, more hurt, or more misunderstanding. It's a way of respecting your own boundaries while also recognizing that the other person may not be in a place to hear or understand your perspective. Silence is also a teacher. It forces us to sit with our own discomfort, to process our emotions without external validation or resolution. When we resist the urge to react, we give ourselves the opportunity to grow. We learn to trust ourselves, to stand firm in our values and boundaries, even when it feels difficult or uncertain. And in that process, we become stronger, more resilient, and more aligned with the person we want to be. But silence is not for the faint of heart. It's a bold and often misunderstood act. People may accuse you of being cold, detached, or indifferent. They may try to provoke a reaction, testing your resolve and challenging your decision to step back. In these moments, it's essential to remember why you chose silence in the first place. It's not about punishing the other person or avoiding the situation. It's about honoring yourself and prioritizing your own well-being. Silence is a boundary that requires us to let go of the need for approval or understanding from others. It asks us to be okay with not being heard or validated in the moment. And that's hard. It's incredibly hard. but it's also liberating, because when you stop seeking external validation, you free yourself from the grip of other people's opinions and expectations. You begin to find strength and clarity within yourself rather than relying on others to provide it for you. In a world that values noise and reaction, choosing silence can feel radical. It can feel like you're swimming against the current, challenging the norms and expectations of how we're supposed to respond to conflict or adversity. But that's precisely what makes it so powerful. Silence isn't about conforming to someone else's expectations. It's about reclaiming your agency, your voice, and your energy on your own terms. It's about saying, I don't need to react to prove my worth or defend my boundaries. My silence speaks for itself. Reacting often surrenders your emotional energy to others. It's an automatic reflex for many of us, driven by the need to defend ourselves, prove our point, or make sense of a situation. But what we don't often realize in those moments of reaction is that we're giving away something incredibly valuable, our emotional energy. Every time we react, especially in emotionally charged situations, we hand over a part of ourselves to the other person. It's not just the words we speak or the actions we take. It's the deeper, intangible energy that fuels our thoughts, our focus, and ultimately our peace. When you react to someone, you're playing by their rules on their terms. They've triggered you intentionally or not. And now your energy is caught up in their story. Whether it's a heated argument, a passive-aggressive comment, or a blatant act of disrespect, the moment you react, you become a participant in their narrative. This doesn't mean your emotions aren't valid, they absolutely are. But the question is whether reacting truly serves you or just pulls you deeper into a dynamic that leaves you drained. Think about the times you've reacted out of anger or frustration. Perhaps you said something in the heat of the moment that you later regretted. Or maybe you spent hours replaying the situation in your head, crafting the perfect comeback, or wondering if you should have handled things differently. That cycle of reacting, regretting, and ruminating is exhausting. It takes a toll on your mental and emotional well-being, leaving you depleted and often no closer to a resolution. What makes reacting so draining is that it's rarely done with intention. Reactions are fast, emotional, and often impulsive. They're driven by the need to protect ourselves or to make sense of a situation that feels out of our control. But in reacting, we often lose sight of what truly matters: our inner peace, our clarity, and our ability to choose how we show up in the world. When you react, you're not acting from a place of power, you're acting from a place of reactivity, where your emotions are steering the ship. Surrendering your emotional energy doesn't just happen in moments of conflict or confrontation. It can also happen in subtler ways when you allow someone's criticism to linger in your mind, when you overthink a perceived slight, or when you feel the need to defend yourself against someone's assumptions or judgments. In each of these moments, your energy is being directed outward towards someone else's words or actions instead of being focused inward on your own values and needs. One of the challenges in recognizing this dynamic is that reacting can feel empowering in the moment. There's a rush of adrenaline, a sense of asserting yourself or standing up for what's right. But that sense of empowerment is often fleeting. It doesn't lead to the deeper satisfaction or resolution we're seeking. Instead, it keeps us caught in a loop of external validation, where our peace is dependent on someone else's response or reaction. The alternative to reacting is choosing how to respond or whether to respond at all. This doesn't mean suppressing your emotions or ignoring your feelings. It means pausing, stepping back, and asking yourself, is this worth my energy? Will reacting to the situation bring me closer to the person I want to be? That pause is where your power lies. It's in that moment of choice that you reclaim your energy and decide how to use it in a way that serves you rather than depletes you. Reclaiming your emotional energy requires practice and self-awareness. It means recognizing the patterns that trigger you and understanding why certain situations or people elicit such strong reactions. It means learning to sit with discomfort without immediately trying to fix it or fight against it. And it means developing the courage to let go of the need to control how others perceive you or respond to you. It's important to note that surrendering your emotional energy doesn't just affect you, it also impacts your relationships. When you react impulsively, you risk escalating conflict, miscommunicating your intentions, or reinforcing unhealthy dynamics. But when you choose not to react or to respond with intention, you create space for healthier interactions. You set a boundary that says, I won't let your actions dictate my emotional state. And in doing so, you model what it means to engage with others from a place of strength and clarity. Choosing not to react doesn't mean you're indifferent or disengaged. It means you're prioritizing your peace and your emotional well-being over the need to prove a point or win an argument. It's about trusting yourself enough to know that you don't need to fight every battle or address every slight. Some things simply don't deserve your energy. This isn't always easy. It takes time and effort to break the habit of reacting, especially if it's something you've been conditioned to do. But the more you practice, the more you'll begin to notice the difference it makes in your life. You'll feel less drained, less entangled in unnecessary conflict, and more in control of your own emotional landscape. You'll find that by conserving your energy, you have more to give to the things and people that truly matter. Walking away protects your peace and self-worth. In life, there are moments when the most courageous thing you can do is step back and remove yourself from situations that no longer serve you. It's not about giving up or avoiding challenges. It's about recognizing when something is robbing you of your inner calm and draining your energy. Protecting your peace isn't selfish. It's an essential act of self-preservation and self-respect. It's a way of acknowledging that your well-being matters and that you have the right to prioritize it above all else. Peace is one of the most valuable things we can cultivate in our lives. It's the feeling of calm that comes from knowing you're aligned with your values and not letting external chaos dictate your inner state. Yet, it's incredibly fragile. Peace can be disrupted by toxic relationships, unnecessary conflicts, or situations where your boundaries are repeatedly crossed. When you stay in these spaces or continue to engage with people who don't respect you, your peace begins to erode. Walking away is not a sign of weakness. It's a sign of strength. It takes immense courage to let go of situations or people that you've invested time and energy into. It takes bravery to say, I deserve better, even when it's difficult or when others may not understand your decision. But staying in a space that depletes you is far more damaging than the temporary discomfort of walking away. Choosing to leave isn't about avoiding problems. It's about choosing yourself and valuing your worth. When you protect your peace, you're also protecting your self-worth. The two are deeply intertwined. Your self-worth is the foundation of how you see yourself and how you allow others to treat you. When you stay in situations that compromise your peace, you're sending a message to yourself that your feelings and needs don't matter as much as they should. Over time, this can chip away at your confidence and sense of self. Walking away reinforces the belief that you are deserving of respect and kindness. It's a way of saying, I will not tolerate anything less than what aligns with my values and well-being. This act of standing up for yourself, even if it's done quietly and without fanfare, has a profound impact on how you perceive your own worth. It's a declaration to yourself and the world that you are not willing to compromise who you are or what you deserve. Protecting your peace doesn't mean isolating yourself or avoiding all forms of conflict. It means being intentional about where you direct your energy. Not every battle is worth fighting, and not every person is worth your emotional investment. Sometimes the healthiest thing you can do is step away from the noise and focus on nurturing your own well-being. This doesn't mean you're turning your back on others. It means you're choosing to prioritize your mental and emotional health. Walking away can be particularly difficult when there's an emotional attachment involved. You may feel guilty for leaving, especially if the other person or situation has been a significant part of your life. But guilt is not a good enough reason to stay in a space that's harming you. Guilt often arises from societal expectations or the fear of being judged. But it's important to remember that your primary responsibility is to yourself. You cannot pour from an empty cup, and staying in a toxic or draining environment only diminishes your capacity to show up fully for yourself and others. Sometimes walking away means embracing uncertainty. It means stepping into the unknown without a clear plan for what's next. This can be terrifying, but it's also where growth happens. By leaving what no longer serves you, you create space for new opportunities, relationships, and experiences that align with who you are and who you're becoming. It's an act of faith, not necessarily in others, but in yourself and your ability to navigate whatever comes your way. Protecting your peace requires setting boundaries, and walking away is one of the strongest boundaries you can establish. Boundaries are not about controlling others. They're about defining what's acceptable in your life and what isn't. When you walk away, you're enforcing those boundaries in the most powerful way possible. You're choosing to remove yourself from anything that threatens your peace or undermines your worth, and in doing so, you're reclaiming your power. There's often a fear that walking away will be seen as selfish or uncaring. But the reality is that you cannot pour love or kindness into others if you're constantly being drained. By protecting your peace, you're not only honoring yourself, but also ensuring that you can show up fully in the areas of your life that truly matter. You're creating the conditions for a healthier, more fulfilling existence, both for yourself and for those who deserve your energy. Walking away is not about closing yourself off from the world. It's about opening yourself up to the possibilities that come when you're no longer tied to situations or people that hold you back. It's about recognizing that your peace and self-worth are non-negotiable and that you have the power to protect them, even when it's hard. Walking away may not always feel like the easiest choice, but it's often the most loving and empowering one you can make. Cutting someone off silently requires clarity and courage. It's not an easy decision to make, and it's one that often comes after much reflection, hurt, and introspection. Choosing silence over confrontation or explanation is not about running away or avoiding responsibility. It's about recognizing that some connections, no matter how deeply rooted or long-standing, have become harmful. It's about deciding that your emotional well-being is more important than holding on to something that drains you, disrespects you, or diminishes your sense of self. Clarity is the first and most important step in this process. You must be honest with yourself about why you're considering this action. Cutting someone off silently is not something to do impulsively or in the heat of the moment. It's a decision that requires you to assess the relationship with clear eyes, free from denial or wishful thinking. Ask yourself, is this relationship consistently bringing more harm than good into my life? Have I communicated my boundaries, and have those boundaries been ignored or violated repeatedly? Do I feel valued and respected in this connection, or do I feel taken advantage of, dismissed, or hurt? Clarity also means understanding your own role in the dynamic. It's easy to place blame entirely on the other person, but relationships are rarely one-sided. Reflect on whether you've allowed certain behaviors to continue by not speaking up earlier or by not enforcing your boundaries. This isn't about blaming yourself, but about taking accountability for your own choices so that you can move forward with intention and self-awareness. Clarity is about seeing the situation for what it truly is, not what you wish it could be or what you think it should be. Once you've gained clarity, courage becomes essential. Cutting someone off silently is not an easy path, especially when it involves someone you care about or have a history with. It requires you to confront uncomfortable emotions like guilt, fear, and doubt. You may worry about how the other person will perceive your actions, whether they'll be hurt or angry, or if they'll view you as cold or unfeeling. These fears are valid, but they cannot dictate your choices. Courage means being willing to sit with these uncomfortable feelings without letting them control you. Courage also means trusting yourself. It's about believing in your ability to make decisions that honor your well-being, even if those decisions are difficult. Trusting yourself can be challenging, especially if you've spent a long time second-guessing your instincts or prioritizing others' needs over your own. But cutting someone off silently is an act of self-trust. It's a way of saying, I know what's best for me, and I'm willing to take the steps necessary to protect my peace, even if it's hard. Choosing silence requires strength because it often goes against our natural instincts. When a relationship is unraveling, many of us feel the urge to explain, to justify, or to seek closure. We want the other person to understand why we're making this decision. And we may even hope they'll validate our feelings or take responsibility for their actions. But the truth is that not everyone is capable of giving you the closure or understanding you seek. Some people will never see your perspective, and waiting for their acknowledgement only keeps you tethered to a dynamic that's no longer serving you. Silence in this context is not about punishing the other person or withholding your thoughts out of spite. It's about conserving your energy and choosing not to engage in a conversation that's unlikely to lead to resolution or healing. It's about recognizing that explaining yourself to someone who refuses to listen or respect your boundaries is an exercise in futility. Instead, you focus on what you can control, your own actions, and your decision to move forward. Cutting someone off silently also requires resilience. It's not a one-time decision, but an ongoing process. There may be moments when you're tempted to reach out, to reopen the door, or to respond if they attempt to reestablish contact. This is where your clarity and courage are tested. You must remind yourself why you made this decision in the first place and resist the pull of old patterns or emotions. Resilience means standing firm in your boundaries, even when it feels uncomfortable or when others try to challenge them. The courage to cut someone off silently is deeply tied to self-respect. It's an acknowledgement that you deserve relationships that uplift you, not ones that weigh you down. It's a way of reclaiming your time, your energy, and your sense of self from a connection that has become unhealthy. While it may feel like a loss in the short term, it's ultimately an act of self-love and self-preservation. The clarity to recognize when a relationship is no longer serving you and the courage to take action are hard-won qualities. They require you to trust in your own judgment and to prioritize your well-being above the fear of what others might think or say. It's not about being heartless or indifferent. It's about choosing yourself in a world that often asks you to choose others first. Letting go is an act of self-love, not revenge. It's a difficult truth to embrace, especially when we feel wronged by others or betrayed in some way. The natural response in these moments is often to seek retribution, to make the other person feel the hurt or justice we've experienced. But revenge, while it may offer a temporary sense of relief or satisfaction, doesn't bring lasting peace. Letting go, on the other hand, is about choosing healing over harm, freedom over entanglement, and peace over bitterness. It's about recognizing that the person you're ultimately saving is yourself. When we hold on to resentment or anger, we are allowing the other person to continue to affect us long after the event has passed. These emotions are heavy and consuming. They weigh us down and keep us stuck in a cycle of pain and frustration. By holding on to grudges, we give someone else power over our emotions, our thoughts, and our well-being. Letting go is a way of reclaiming that power, of breaking free from the grip that anger or hurt has on us. It's a way of choosing to release the past in order to make space for a healthier, more peaceful present and future. Letting go doesn't mean excusing the other person's behavior or pretending that what happened didn't matter. It means acknowledging the pain, feeling the anger or disappointment, and then choosing not to let those feelings control your life anymore. It's about accepting that some things are beyond your control and that holding on to the past is preventing you from fully embracing the future. Letting go is not about denying your emotions. It's about allowing them to move through you without holding on to them or letting them dictate your actions. When we choose to let go, we're choosing self-love because we are choosing to protect our emotional health. Revenge, on the other hand, often stems from to regain control, to make the other person feel the way we do, or to prove that we weren't wrong. But revenge only perpetuates the cycle of pain. It keeps the negativity alive, keeps us tethered to the situation, and keeps us emotionally tied to the person who hurt us. Letting go is the ultimate act of strength because it requires us to release that emotional attachment. It's about saying, I am more than this pain, and I refuse to let it define me. Letting go also allows us to move forward. When we hold on to the past, we trap ourselves in a loop of what ifs and why me. We become stuck in a mindset that keeps us looking backward instead of forward. By letting go, we open up the possibility for new experiences, relationships, and growth. We allow ourselves the opportunity to heal and rebuild without the weight of past hurt holding us back. It's a freeing choice, one that allows us to reclaim our energy and invest it in the present moment. Another aspect of letting go is the freedom it offers. When we release resentment, anger, or hurt, we free ourselves from the emotional chains that tie us to someone else. We stop carrying the burden of someone else's actions, and we allow ourselves to step into our own power. Letting go enables us to reclaim our peace and joy without being constantly triggered by past hurts. It's about making the conscious decision not to let another person's actions determine the course of our lives. Self-love also means understanding that sometimes people can't give us what we need, and that's okay. We may seek closure, an apology, or an explanation, but in many cases, those things will never come. Letting go is about accepting that fact and finding peace within ourselves rather than relying on the other person to provide it. It's about shifting the focus from seeking validation from others to finding validation within ourselves. We are not defined by others' actions, but by our own choices, our own values, and our own capacity to love and care for ourselves. There's a profound sense of empowerment in letting go because it is a choice we make for ourselves. When we choose to let go, we are actively taking control of our emotional landscape. We are refusing to let someone else's behavior or the pain of the past dictate how we live our lives. Instead of allowing the wounds of yesterday to shape our today, we make the decision to heal, to move on, and to choose peace. Letting go is not about being passive. It's about being active in the pursuit of our own well-being. Letting go also requires compassion both for yourself and for the other person involved. It's about recognizing that everyone is on their own journey, and sometimes that journey may involve hurting others, whether intentionally or not. While that doesn't excuse their actions, it allows us to release the need for revenge or to hold on to anger. Compassion means understanding that the other person is not perfect and may have their own wounds they are dealing with. It doesn't mean we accept poor treatment, but it does allow us to release the emotional hold they have on us. Ultimately, letting go is about choosing to live for ourselves, not in reaction to others. It's about prioritizing our own peace, our own growth, and our own happiness over the need to hold someone accountable for past wrongs. It's a profound expression of self-love because it allows us to reclaim our energy, our time, and our emotional resources. Instead of allowing others to take up space in our hearts and minds, we choose to let go so we can fill that space with love, joy, and the possibility of a brighter future. Silence is a powerful tool in managing relationships and personal boundaries. It's often undervalued and misunderstood, but it holds an incredible amount of strength when used intentionally. In a world where everything feels like it demands an immediate response, whether through words, actions, or social media, silence offers a necessary reprieve. It provides us with the space to collect our thoughts, to process our emotions, and to decide how we want to engage with the world around us. More than just the absence of sound, silence can be a deliberate and purposeful act that speaks volumes. When we're in the midst of conflict or when someone says something that triggers us, the instinct is often to respond quickly. We feel a surge of emotions, anger, frustration, or even hurt, and our initial reaction is to lash out, to correct, or to defend ourselves. However, in these moments, the power of silence lies in its ability to create distance between stimulus and response. Instead of immediately reacting to the other person's words or actions, silence allows us the opportunity to reflect, to process, and to choose a response that is more aligned with our values and boundaries. The strength of silence comes from the space it creates between us and the situation. It allows us to regain control of our emotional energy rather than letting our feelings dictate our actions. By choosing not to react, we shift the power dynamic away from external triggers and bring it back to ourselves. In this silence, we can gather clarity, assess the situation from a more balanced perspective, and decide whether or not it's worth engaging. This doesn't mean silence is about avoidance or suppressing emotions. On the contrary, it's about acknowledging our emotions without letting them take over. It's about being able to sit with discomfort and allow our feelings to pass without the need for immediate action. Silence is a tool for emotional regulation. When we allow ourselves to be still and present with our feelings, we give them the time to dissipate, rather than letting them build up into something more reactive or destructive. In relationships, silence can be a powerful tool for setting boundaries. There are times when saying nothing is more effective than saying something. When someone disrespects our boundaries or crosses a line, reacting with silence can send a clear and firm message that their behavior is not acceptable. Silence here is not passive, it's an active demonstration of self-respect and personal sovereignty. It lets the other person know that we will not engage with behavior that is disrespectful or harmful. Additionally, silence can be a protective mechanism in certain situations, especially when dealing with toxic or manipulative individuals. Saying nothing can protect us from being dragged into unnecessary arguments or drama. People who thrive on conflict or try to provoke others can be disarmed by silence. When they don't get the expected reaction from us, they may lose interest in trying to escalate the situation. Silence in this context is a shield, a way to protect ourselves from the emotional exhaustion that comes from engaging in fruitless or toxic interactions. Choosing silence also allows us to evaluate the value of a situation or relationship. When we remove ourselves from the need to respond, we can more objectively consider whether the relationship is healthy and whether it aligns with our values. Silence helps us tune into our intuition and listen to what we truly need. It's easy to get caught up in the drama or emotional volatility of a situation, but silence provides a moment of clarity where we can discern whether continuing to engage is in our best interest. Moreover, silence has the ability to create space for others to reflect and reconsider their actions. In some situations, when we don't react, the other person is forced to confront their own behavior. They may wonder why we haven't responded what they said that caused our silence, or whether they've crossed a line. This gives them an opportunity to examine their own actions without the distraction of our immediate response. Silence, in this sense, can promote growth and self-awareness, both for ourselves and for the other person. But silence, when used too often or in the wrong context, can also be damaging. It's important to recognize that there are times when silence is necessary for our emotional well-being, but there are also moments when silence can be a form of avoidance or passive aggression. The key is in using silence intentionally. It should never be a tool for manipulating others or punishing them, but rather a method of maintaining emotional balance and protecting our peace. In order to use silence effectively, we must also be clear about our own boundaries and needs. Silence should never be an excuse for neglecting to communicate when communication is necessary. It's important to strike a balance, choosing silence when it's truly the most empowering response, but also knowing when it's time to speak up, set boundaries, or have difficult conversations. Silence works best when paired with self-awareness and emotional intelligence, as it allows us to make conscious choices rather than reacting impulsively. Ultimately, silence is an invitation for deeper reflection, understanding, and connection. It creates space for introspection, for evaluating our own emotions and responses, and for deciding how to engage with the world in a way that aligns with our values. Silence is not about shutting down or withdrawing from life. It's about choosing the right moment to speak, to act, and to protect our peace. When used consciously, silence can be a source of great strength, offering us the clarity and emotional control needed to navigate the complexities of life. In conclusion, choosing silence over reaction is a powerful tool for maintaining peace, protecting our emotional well-being, and setting healthy boundaries. It allows us to step back, reflect, and make decisions that are rooted in self-respect and clarity rather than impulsive emotions. Silence is not avoidance. It's a conscious, deliberate choice to prioritize our own mental and emotional health. By embracing silence, we give ourselves the space to heal, regain control, and navigate life's challenges with greater strength and awareness. Ultimately, silence empowers us to reclaim our peace and preserve our self-worth.